I have been having a lot of the same conversation lately, and it's coming from different founders, different businesses, different stages of their business. But the same thread is running through all of it. And I've been sitting with this long enough that I think I finally want to say it out loud. So that's what today's going to be. 4 different conversations that I keep having and what I'm seeing underneath each one of those. This is She's Built Like a CEO podcast, and I'm Brooke, your host. I work inside the back ends of female-founded businesses every day. And I know that you already know that your back end needs some attention. You've known for a while. But instead of dealing with it, you're buying another course, testing another tool, trying another strategy, literally anything that feels like forward motion without actually touching the thing that needs to change. The back end is the problem. The systems, the tech, the processes running behind the scenes or not running. Those are what are costing you time, growth, and the version of your business you keep saying you're building towards. I know you don't want to touch it because you feel about technology the way I feel about laundry, and I get it. But that's why I'm here. In this podcast, we talk about what's actually happening behind the scenes of successful women's businesses and what it actually takes to fix it. Let's get into it. First, some context. Let's acknowledge it. Elephant in the room. The market's different right now. People are spending differently. There are more service providers and coaches and consultants online than there ever have been, which means visibility is harder to earn and sales cycles are running longer. So a lot of founders were feeling a shift. When revenue slows or plateaus, we have this instinct that kicks in to move and to move fast. Find a problem, fix it. And that instinct, it makes sense, right? But the part that we really need to pay attention to in this is like, which problem is actually getting identified? Because the urgency tends to surface the most visible symptom, and the most visible symptom is not always the root. It's the same with any medical thing too. I have an autoimmune disease that I learned the hard way. There's all kinds of things where we see the problem, but the root cause is often different. So here's 4 conversations that I keep having, and I keep having. Let's talk about them. The first one is, I need more leads. This is a really common one right now because the pipeline often feels thin. Inquiries are low. The conclusion is that more leads coming in is actually going to turn things around. And that can be true. It can be true. But here's what I see quite often when I actually look at the back end of a business in this kind of situation. The leads exist. They come from your content, from referrals, from whatever you brought them into the ecosystem with, right? But there's a gap between where they find you and where they land and where that buying decision actually happens. No nurture sequence moving them along, no clear path from interested to booked, no follow-up system catching the people who showed up but didn't take action right away. So leads come in and they arrive, but they sit. And then after a while, they leave. And here's what that costs you in real terms. For instance, you say you need more leads, right? So maybe you go run ads. And I'm terrible at numbers, but let's just keep it simple. So let's just say 50 inquiries come in and 2 of those convert. And you walk away thinking that the ads underperformed. Or maybe your offer needs some tweaking or needs some different work. But meanwhile, if you're looking at the back end, were you actually set up to receive those 50 people? Did you have a solid nurture sequence, a clear call to action, a system for moving them from interested to bought? Because those 50 inquiries could reasonably convert to 10 or 15 with the same ad spend, 5 to 10 times the return, if the gap in the infrastructure isn't there. The gap is in the infrastructure that receives leads, not in the volume of them. So you need to ask yourself some questions before you diagnose the right problem or the wrong problem. When someone joins your email list, what happens to them? Map it out step by step. Is there a nurture sequence? Does it lead them somewhere specific? Is there one clear call to action? And does every touch point to the same place? That's the audit before the ad spend. The next thing I see people do so often, I watch people do this day in and day out. And I'm going to say that 99% of the time, It is not the actual problem. They're telling me I need a new offer, or my offer's not quite right, or I need to adjust my offer suite. This one shows up when revenue stalls and the offer gets identified as the culprit. So we make a new one. We edit the existing one, rebuild it from the inside out, or the whole offer suite gets reorganized or redone or rebuilt. And sometimes we just scrap everything and completely build a whole new business. What I'm observing when I look at the back end in these situations is a buying experience with friction within it. The offer itself is fine. 99% of the time, the offer you have is fine. The gap is in how easy it is to actually purchase or know it's available for purchase at all. Maybe your email sequence is talking about the offer one way, and then your sales page describes something just slightly differently. Or your link in bio takes them to the place where they have to click 4 more times to actually get to checkout. If your call to action isn't clear, that's going to cause problems. A person who is ready to buy has to work to figure out how to do it. They're not going to. Most people will not do that work. They're going to move on. Weeks spent rebuilding the offer, relaunching with the same buying experience behind it, produces the same result. The offer was never the variable. That is not the diagnosis in this situation. So here's where I want you to look when you have gotten to the point where you're diagnosing the offer as the problem. I want you to walk through the purchase path yourself. From the point where someone first expresses interest, like on a post or an email or by sending you a DM, and I want you to count every step between that moment and a completed transaction. I want you to look for messaging shifts. I want to look for forks in that path where someone could reasonably get confused or leave or decide this isn't worth the effort. That's where the work is. The next one isn't necessarily diagnosing the wrong problem, but it is putting the cart before the horse. When revenue has plateaued, the solution feels like we need more volume, more clients, more offers, more revenue streams, push harder on growth. A lot of times what I see in this situation, though, is that the back end of your business at this stage is a structure that's running on your personal effort. Onboarding is manual and it takes hours. Client communication lives in your head. Deliverables depend on you being the one to initiate everything, and nothing is documented and nothing is running without you doing something between each step. At that point, adding volume to your structure does not create growth. It's going to add pressure to something that has already hit capacity. Because obviously more clients means more of everything, right? More onboarding, more communication, more delivery, more follow-up. And if all of that is still running manually and still requiring you to do it, that client experience is going to become really inconsistent and your retention is going to drop. You're going to see more hours of work for the same amount of revenue or less, while also managing the perception that things are running fine. The ceiling you're hitting here is a structural one. Growth does not move it. Build that infrastructure so that it can hold more, so that it's sustainable. So if you're at the point here where you're like, hey, I need to grow, I want you to stop for 1 second and I want you to reassess some of these things. Ask what would require your direct involvement if your client load doubled tomorrow. What within your onboarding, what within your communication delivery. Every answer that isn't, oh, that's already systemized. It's already good to go. That's a gap that you need to close before you add volume, because building that structure first, that's going to actually allow you to grow it and sustain it. This last one here. This one comes up when sales are slow and your conclusion is that not enough people are seeing you and your business. Don't have the visibility, right? So the solution is let's create more content. Let's do more collaborations. Let's do more podcast appearances, more presence everywhere. And listen, more presence, more showing up. It's not a bad thing as long as you can handle that within your capacity, right? But what I'm seeing in the back end is that the attention, it exists. You have followers, you have email subscribers, people are engaging with your content, people are clicking the links. The gap is in what happens after the link, after the click. And this kind of loops back to the first thing we talked about, where your link in bio goes to a page that doesn't match with the content promise, and there's no easy way to start a conversation with you, or maybe someone expresses interest in the comments and nothing actually captures it. People arrive, they look around, and they leave because there's no clear next step waiting for them. More visibility sends more people through that same leaking funnel, and your volume goes up, but the conversion rate, that stays flat. So if that's what you're looking at, I want you to consider this. Consider what happens to the people who already have found you. Do you have a clear next visible step every single place that you show up? I don't care where you're sending them, as long as it takes them to where they need to go and actually purchase from you, right? A booking page, a sales page, a lead magnet with a direct path to that place. Are you using something like ManyChat to send them to your DMs and get them the link in their hand right away? Is there a system moving people from follower to subscriber to buyer? Or is that path a manual one that depends on you reaching out directly? If that's the case, tighten the path for the audience you have before expanding on top of the funnel. 4 conversations, 4 different symptoms, one thing running underneath all of them. The back end infrastructure hasn't kept pace with the business, and the gaps in it are filling up with your time, your energy, and your manual effort, which means that you're hitting a ceiling, and the ceiling moves when the infrastructure does. None of these moves these founders are considering are wrong as goals. Leads, offer clarity, growth, visibility, all of those things, they matter, right? The sequence matters too. And the sequence starts with looking at what's already in place before you add to it. Because if any of those 4 conversations sound familiar to you, we need to start there and look at the gap before you make your next move, before you diagnose that problem and fix the wrong thing. What's in the back end right now, and what would have to be true for the thing you want to do next to actually work? If you want to look at what is happening in the back end of your business before you make your next move, then the back end business audit is 90 minutes with me where I look at your specific business, tell you exactly what I see, and you leave with a clear picture of what to address first. Link is in the show notes. I also have a free back-end self-audit that's in the show notes if you want to start there and do this on your own. Again, thank you for being here. I'll see you next week.